Going on, everybody? This is Josh Lyles, founder over at Sales-CRM. Today, I've got Steve Vest with me from Nationwide Equipment Transportation. Steve's the founder over there at Nationwide. You may have seen him on TikTok. He's pretty big over there. Always kind of stirring the pot, but doing some good stuff on the brokerage side. So, Steve, how's it going today?
Hey, thanks, Josh. Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it. It's
Of
going well.
course, grateful to be connected with you and have another conversation here. Steve, just really quick for our audience, how long have you been a freight broker for?
I've been in the industry over 20 years. Our company actually this year, this is our 20th year as a company. But I've been doing it for almost 30 between, freight forwarding, air freighting, and being a forwarder at another company or a broker at another company. So, but yeah, this is our 20th year in business. It's been good to us, and we're, you know, definitely branching out and growing rapidly with kind of our TikTok fame, I guess you could say.
Well, congrats on 20 years. 20 years in brokering is maybe not the easiest thing to sustain, over a 2 decade period.
100%. I mean, people that think it's easy when you jump into this industry and you're going to make $1 million off the bat and get greedy are the ones that usually get in trouble and give credit to someone they shouldn't and end up going out of business. I hear those stories all the time. So for us to have survived for 20 years and been able to avoid that has been pretty good for us. So
What do you think's, I mean, because I feel like a lot of people, for example, if they start brokering, maybe eventually they get into management or they jump from maybe sales to operations or, to a different role and whatnot. What do you think has actually gotten you to the point where, hey, now you're in the seat 20 years later?
I think it's just showing up every day and grinding and being good at sales. I try to teach people with some of our classes that being a freight broker is being in sales, and a lot of people don't realize that, and I think drivers have a misconception or carriers do as well. But the biggest thing for us is just doing the right thing all the time and making sure that we are honest up front and everybody can get a hold of us and be available, whether it be phone, email, or um, text or whatever. But really, it's just about working your book of business and continuing to push that snowball uphill until it starts rolling downhill really fast. And then you just have to hang on and hope that you can service everybody the way that you've done from the beginning. And we put things in place to be able to do that. And we've continued to develop our technology over the years to do that at scale. So I think that's the biggest thing that we've been able to do.
What was your first job in sales? Was it in freight or in another industry?
It was in freight. Yeah, I worked as an air freight inside sales manager for a large air freight company back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And after 9/11, that industry kind of took a hit. And um, I left there and worked there for like 8 years and got promoted and did well, but it was time to move on. And yeah, now that industry's kind of not as what it once was. We were air freighting,
Hmm.
semi axles across the country for 15 grand every night, and now we're just not doing, they're not doing that now. So
So what was that when you made that transition out to start Nationwide Equipment? What was the transition and process like for you? Were you nervous? Were you scared? Did you feel that, hey, I'm built for this? How did that go for
I
you?
was probably the typical 28-year-old, thought he knew everything and wouldn't fail. And so I think that to some degree is really good to be as an entrepreneur. You have to jump into it, wholeheartedly and just do everything you can every day to make it successful. Because I really wasn't going to fail. I had a young family and didn't want to fail. So I just kept showing up every day and continuing to grind forward. 20 years ago, Josh, I think freight getting into freight and being a freight broker was a lot easier. We could call shippers and they would trust who we were and they would do business with us pretty easily. Now, with all the fraud and all the stolen stuff and all of the bad players in the industry, it is very, very hard to jump into right now because people just won't trust you. And it takes a lot to build that brand that we've built of trust, and people working with us know that we're going to do the right thing. And so it was a lot easier 20 years ago. Just let me tell you that.
Yeah, I believe it. Probably a lot less tech and
For
I
sure.
bet the whole process of brokering freight, from what I've heard, but just whether it's the
Yeah.
note cards on the wall or the
Yep.
fax machines and all that kind of stuff,
It
a lot
was
different.
definitely a lot easier. I feel like the more tech that we've developed over the years for, counterfeit, for double brokering to vetting carriers to tracking to load boards and all that stuff that we didn't have to worry about back then. It was just a lot easier, a lot simpler, but we couldn't do as much either. So now we can do a lot more volume and we're safer now. So
Yeah, no, it makes sense. So I guess for your team right now, how many agents are on your team? Are they all agents, or do you have any W-2 brokers on your team?
we have one I just brought someone in to run my book kind of underneath me, and he's kind of calling on my stuff and warm leads and all that. But I have 10 agents right now throughout the country, and we're bringing on one or two every month, it seems like right now. And so we'd like to get up to 20 by the end of the year, and hire maybe a couple more W 2 people to run underneath me. And then I have a couple people that run my book of business for me as far as just the day to day booking loads and operations and things like that. So.
Nice. So all of your agents are remote?
Yeah. Yeah. We
Gotcha.
closed our office down in 2023, sent everybody home. Saving that money on the office space is huge,
Right.
especially right now as margins are becoming suppressed and everybody's, tight. And so I'm glad we made that change when we did. It was a great business move from my part. So.
Gotcha. Do you guys have any particular niche that you guys focus in? Are you any specific freight that you guys are specializing in, or is it kind of
Yeah,
all over
just
the
in our
place?
name, obviously, Nationwide Equipment. We specialize in equipment, so it doesn't matter what kind of equipment. If you've got equipment, machinery, heavy or light, that's what we specialize in. That isn't the only thing that we do, though. Obviously, we move a lot of different products. There's a lot of things we won't touch, but that's pretty much our niche. Is any kind of equipment you can name, from medical to printing to restaurant to all sorts of different other kinds of stuff. So.
Gotcha. Um, Transitioning, talking a little bit about sales here. Um, I guess just for you and your agents, it sounds like, it's a little bit more sort of cradle to grave, like, hey, you're, doing stuff on the shipper side, carrier side. I guess for you in particular, I'm curious, do you enjoy the shipper side more or the carrier side more?
Actually, I'm kind of loving both right now. We're developing out our platform to kind of work a little bit more with carriers to help them out more as we go this year. But I actually enjoy the prospecting sales aspect of talking to shippers because I really do enjoy just learning about different things and how things are made. So if there's a TV show on that they're talking about how something was made or how something was invented, or some entrepreneur show, I'm on it, man. That's like my jam. That's what I enjoy. So, when I was in outside sales and I would go into a warehouse, it was a lot of fun to be able to walk around and see stuff. So when I go see clients now, that's one thing I really enjoy, is just getting out, walking the floor with them, learning about their process, how it works, and helping them out in their business if I can, and suggesting ideas or things that I see, but more just interested to learn how things are made, and I'm curious
Yeah.
about that. So,
Curiosity is a top trait you've got to have in sales. So
yep.
I'm speaking of curiosity, I'm a little bit curious about that too for you, because I think when you see some of the questions people post online and whatnot, a lot of them will ask, well, hey, how do I start, getting freight from shippers? And, I followed you, we've been following each other for a bit, and I've seen you make cold calls and post your cold calls. I've seen you hit the trade show floor and also visit your shippers, while your truck's on site and all that stuff. So it seems like you're doing a little bit of everything, but what's kind of your general take and approach when it comes to getting shippers? And if somebody was to ask you, hey, how do I go and get shippers?
Right.
What would you tell them?
I would tell them to take my class. First of all, it's got all the sales training in it that you would need. But for me, you have to do a little bit of everything. You have to be creative, especially in this market. You can't just rely on emailing. I think a lot of people jump in thinking I'm just going to email a bunch of people. In fact, I had someone comment today, what subject line do you use to get attention? And I was like, well, that's a secret. I'm not going to tell you that because I have my own secrets. But I also don't rely on email campaigns to make my living. I pick up the phone, I go to trade shows, I go in person, but you have to be creative. And if you can provide a solution and a value to your client, then you have a better chance of getting your foot in the door there. If you're just calling up and asking if they have freight, well, obviously they do. How are you going to help them? How are you going to make their job easier, is what I tell people all the time. And if you can figure out a way to do that, which I have done very well over 20 years, then you got a shot in this industry. But if you can't, then you're just going to spin your wheels. But I tell people, and a long-winded answer, but that you have to have a cadence to your call. You should have a baseline of what you want to get achieved on that first discovery call. Um, 3 or 4 questions that if you answered these questions for me, I could tell you whether or not I can work with you, right? Like, and you should have your base of like what your ideal customer is. Like, I know this is the type of people that I can help. And for me,
Hmm.
that's small to medium sized businesses that might not have a transportation department that need help from management level or sales level. And I'm looking for those kind of accounts to help out on a daily basis. And then I'm going to ask them, if they're working with a direct carrier or if they're currently working with a broker, do they have their own fleet? There's a couple questions that I asked throughout that first discovery call that really I can get in 2 minutes. I can find out real quick, like, is this someone that I can work with or can I help them? If I can't, I move on, let them know, have a nice day, call me if you need me, type of thing. And then just having the follow up. I mean, I think there's a stat that I share with my team when they do training, but most salespeople give up after the first call. And in this industry, it takes 4 to 8 calls at least, contacts, whether that be through email or social media or with, in-person visits, 4 to 8 times. And people give up after the first one. Over, I think it's like 65%. And
Dang.
then maybe only 30% make a second call. And then maybe only 10% make more than that or something. There's some stats to that. But that's kind of what I would say. Long-winded answer again.
No, that's great. I mean, that's good insight. I think around the discovery questions that you're talking about, and then just how many follow-ups that it requires. Because yeah, I think a lot of people, I, you know, at least like when I got in the industry and when I would talk to people, it was just this whole mentality of, hey, just dial down a list and 100 plus dials in a day. And I think that you eventually start to realize, hey, I've got to be making sure I'm reaching out to these people over and over and over again, because I don't know how it is for you, so I guess it'd be a good question, but like one call closes weren't something that you commonly came across. Is that something for you?
I mean, for me, with experience, I do get a lot of opportunities after the first call just because I do a really good job of probing and being curious and asking them questions and letting them tell
Hmm.
me their story, and then providing them a solution to that. And I'm really targeted on who I call. So for me, it's a little bit different. But if you're new and you're just starting out, Josh has a CRM platform built for shippers, and I'm interested in doing a demo with him on that someday. But you have to make a lot of calls, but you better make good notes so that you know what you
Hmm.
talked about the last time. And you're not just making that general follow up call. You have to give them something on the next call or pushing that envelope forward. And so a sales CRM that you can keep track of that is very, very important. And, like I said, I'm excited to see your software, Josh, because we can maybe integrate it with our system and API and all that eventually. And so that's kind of what we're looking for, hopefully. But it's just, to me, I think having a plan and action that you're going into for the week and where you want to be calling and who you want to be calling on, and not just throwing darts at the dartboard, I guess, for lack of a
Yeah,
better word.
that makes sense. What would you say is the common approach that you see? Like you mentioned already, hey, you should have 3, 4 discovery questions. So for those that you've taught, or even some of the new agents you've onboarded, what's the common approach that you've seen that, hey, that's not typically going to cut it?
Well, I think mainly, I think they all think that they can just email their way to success. I mean, to
Yeah.
be honest, I mean, I really feel like that. I've interviewed a bunch of people, and I've even got some agents that continue to do that. And I keep telling them, coaching them that, email is going to help. It's going to take a lot longer for you to be successful. You might be able to land a whale doing that, but the success rate is very small. Like, you're a million emails to one potential, you know, good client. So I see that a lot. I see, just like in any sales job, Josh, and if you've done any other sales, I've only done freight sales, but the fear to actually pick up the phone and actually contact someone, if you aren't comfortable doing that, then you shouldn't be doing sales. Because for me, I love it. I genuinely love picking up the phone and talking to people. I mean, I go out to dinner with my wife. If we're sitting at the bar, I'm picking up a conversation with whoever's next to me, and my
Hmm.
wife will join in. We just are curious about what everybody else does. Like, what do you do for a living? Like, making friends anywhere I go. And I think a lot of people are too scared just to pick up the phone. And if you just do that, like I said, you asked me earlier how I've been successful with 20 years. That's the answer.
Yeah.
Literally pick up the phone, continue to do your job every single day, show up. You don't get a chance to call in sick when you do this job. So, my dog passed away on Friday,
Sorry to
16
hear.
years. It's been a long weekend. And even, Monday morning, my wife and I both didn't really want to come into the office, but we have a job to do.
Mhm.
And you don't have the luxury of just taking a day off, when you are a freight broker, unfortunately. So,
Yeah. Sorry to hear about your dog, because yeah, 16 years, that's a long time, and I
yeah, it
know
was a
that
great
they're our
dog.
best friends.
Yep.
Um, on that topic, just, I think the reason why some people struggle with picking up the phone is obviously dealing with the rejection. It's very challenging for a lot of people. So for you, hey, I can face that if I pick up this, if I when I pick up the phone and I make this dial. What is your mindset though going into facing the potential rejection?
I think just like any other sales job that people have, and they tell you all the time, rejection is going to come 99 out of 100 times. It's just how you handle it. And to be honest with you, as a young kid, I was rejected all the time. So I guess I built up a very thick skin, and I don't really care what anybody thinks about me. So if a shipper tells me no or I'm not interested, then I just think to myself that's their loss because they really don't know what they're missing out on. It's not ego, it's not anything like that. It's just I know what I bring to the table, and the people that want to work with me will, and the people that don't. And that's the way I approach the calls. I don't, I go into it expecting to close. I mean, always be closing, the statement.
Mhm.
I always expect the person on the other end to be receptive to what I'm going to offer them. But it doesn't always happen, and they hang up in your face or they tell you to F off or whatever. Like, you just have to roll with it and move on because at the end of the day, what's the saying? Like, every no is one step closer to a yes. I mean, that's kind of the way I look at it. If I make 10 calls today and I get told nine, I probably got told one yes. And so that's a really good, a good ratio in my opinion.
Absolutely. What you mentioned having, with the team, talking with your team about making 48 calls when it comes to the follow-ups. What would you say is kind of the typical sales cycle length in days or weeks or months that you normally see from your first outreach to, when you actually may be able to onboard a shipper?
I think you should have a sequence or a cadence or something that would be a month. You should expect that by the time you first contact someone, it should take you about a month to really get your foot in the door there. Does that not mean that it takes 4 years on some? Then yes, it does. But when you're picking up the phone and you're qualifying on that first probing call, you're going to know whether or not you have a shot, if they have the right freight, if they have enough freight for you to actually want to follow up with them and work with them. Um, but yeah, that cadence should be about a 30-day cycle. So you should know within the 30-day cycle, do I have a shot? Is there a bid coming up at the end of the year? I just need to follow up with them then. Or is it someone that has regular shipments that we talked and I feel like I could definitely help them out? Um, but yeah, it's not follow up every single day because people are busy in this business. And I think people that pick up the phone and try to call someone every single day to find out what they're doing or, what shipping they got going on, you haven't created value yet if you're doing that. And so when I follow up with someone, it's usually I have a very slow cadence to be honest with you because I've built my book to where I can do that. But like call them on a Thursday. I send out a mailer. I actually send out still physical mailers with a business card in the mail, in the snail mail. And then I also hopefully have gotten their email address. So I'll shoot them an email. So that's what I do day one. And then in a week, I'll call them back and follow up with them, make sure they got my email, make sure they got the mailer, see if they have any questions. And then also just push that forward like, hey, do you have anything on your desk right now today that I can help you out with? What can I make your job easier for today? They might or might not give me a chance still. And so then I might email them in a week or two, add them to I do 2 emails a month, 70,000 emails in my database. I send out just different things that we put together through Canva, and they go out twice a month.
Mm.
But then I'll follow up with them depending on our conversation. It might be I don't need to follow up with them for a month. Maybe I feel like I really got a good shot and I should follow up with them next week. But mine's very slow compared to most. So
Gotcha. Yeah, I know some can be pretty aggressive, and some, as you mentioned, it could be one follow-up and then, all of a sudden they're done. So, um, I guess quick scenario for you. Let's just say you've got a brand new lead that's in your name, it's in your system, and you're looking to make a cold call. How would you approach going into that cold call?
I mean, pre-call planning, everybody needs to do it, but you have to do it quickly. You can't, have analysis paralysis by analysis, as they say. You can't just sit there and overanalyze what you're going to say on the call. But if I have a brand new lead that comes in, I basically pre-call plan real quick by pulling up their website, maybe pull up their LinkedIn and see if I can find the person. Do a little bit of background research literally within a minute. And sometimes I'm doing it while I'm dialing the phone, so that I can just see real quick. Because I can discern just by looking at someone's website, like what kind of freight they have. Is it van? Is it flatbed? Is it, LTL? Is it full truckload? That kind of stuff. What size company is it? Is it a multi-billion dollar company, or is it a small mom and pop? So I kind of do that real quick, and that's basically all I do going into the call. I don't think of anything other than my 4 or 5 questions that I know I'm going to ask on every single call. Some people might feel like that's boring, but to me it's that repetitive nature of knowing exactly what you want to get that makes you successful. Whereas if you're trying to tailor the call every single time, I just don't do that. I do tailor my elevator speech to each person depending on what they manufacture or what they're dealing with. I'll mention that exact stuff in my call, so at least they know what I'm talking about. Like, you don't call someone and say, "Hey, I see you ship speakers," when they actually ship plants. So at least you
Hmm.
know a little bit about what they do.
No, that's great. And yeah, I mean, I think everybody, if you put yourself in the shoes of the shipper, you want somebody to have done at least a little bit of research on you, right? And for it not
Yeah,
to just be a super random call, and
right.
just the feeling of just being a number on a list. So, um, I think one of the more challenging things, and you briefly alluded to this earlier, but I think one of the more challenging things, obviously, in this space is working to build the trust, right? Or getting somebody obviously to trust you when you've never moved a shipment for them. They don't really know who you are. It's easy for people to just sit there and say, "Hey, I'm going to communicate the best. Like, you can
Right.
trust me, or pick up, deliver on time." And the reality is that's out of a broker's control a lot of the times. How What's kind of your thought process? And okay, great, they don't trust me right now, but working to build that trust.
Yeah.
How do you go about that?
I mean, for me, my brand is everything. And so obviously people can look at me on social media and see exactly what I represent. Now, obviously, I started that 4 years ago, but
Mhm.
we've been posting on social media for, a lot longer than that. But that's a big part of it. I think social selling right now is a big part of it. The second thing is customer testimonials. I have posted tons of videos where my customers, actually just this week, two of them emailed me great things yesterday or Monday and just said, "Hey, great job. Appreciate you very much. I'm glad you're on my team, blah, blah, blah." And I post those on social media just to show the proof that, and my reviews online. I really push those to try to get people to review me, so that people know that I'm a trusted source and we don't have a bad rating with BABB. I mean, you have to protect your brand and your identity as a broker at 100%. But there's still brokers out there that have a bad rep somehow and they still are in business. But I don't know how, but like for me, that's a big part for me, is just to continue to push that I'm the trusted broker that they can, give their freight to. I'm from Kansas, so that helps. But
Yeah.
people in the Midwest usually have that kind of mentality, or I guess that I don't know what the right word is, but reputation. That's the word I was looking for.
Hmm.
So
Um, I think one of the last things I was curious to talk about, and I always kind of like respect your transparency on with your content, because you don't really back away from any
yeah,
conversation. And a lot of times it's the carriers, right? Because carriers can have this negative outlook on brokers. Um, and so it seems like you really truly work to try to make sure you're creating a really good carrier customer experience as well. What do you feel like separates you on the carrier side compared to other brokers?
I mean, we're a smaller broker, so we can, be involved in the process a little bit more than some of the bigger guys. But I think it's just working with better carriers and making sure you're working with the right ones, but also treating them just like your partner, because without them, we don't have a job, right? Like, they have to be the ones to move the freight. We have to provide the sales side of that and get them the freight. So I just treat them like a business partner. I don't. I think a lot of brokers have that same negative opinion towards carriers as carriers have towards brokers, and that's a
Right.
bad mix. And those brokers and carriers don't usually last in the industry. The ones that understand we all have a job to do and we're all here to get it done and work together, those are the ones that are successful. And that's why I've been in business for 20 years, is because I truly do believe that, and that's why we're building out our tech platform to help shippers, small carriers work together in our platform without a broker being involved, because I think there's a big need there, and we're definitely rolling that out here in the next couple months. So,
Good deal. If somebody was interested, wrapping up here, but if somebody was interested in getting in contact with you, whether they're a carrier watching this and want to haul some freight for you, or if they're an agent and they're curious to learn a little bit more about what you guys do, what would be the best way for them to get in touch with you?
I'll send you the links to my social media, and you can maybe pop that up on the screen or whatever. But just NTWD Equip Trans, or you can go to our website, nationwidetrans.com, and you can get a hold of me that way. I'm very easy to get a hold of, very easy to find. It amazes me sometimes when people come into my comments and they ask, how do I get a hold of you? Or how do I find shippers, that kind of thing. And, Google's pretty powerful, and you can find someone pretty easy.
Right. Yeah. Make sure you go check out Steve's website, connect with Steve on all the social platforms. Yeah, Steve, really appreciate you taking the time
Yeah,
today
man.
and sharing some of
Anytime, man.
your
Anytime I
knowledge and
can
wisdom.
provide value to you or the people that watch your channel or anybody on social media, that's really what I want to do, is just educate people. I mean, I'm the old guy at this point, so I might as well share some wisdom that I have before I forget it all. So,
Well, I respect it, man. You still have the energy, and it's contagious, because it's really easy for people after I feel like a year or two in the sales seat to to just want to kind of put it down and stuff. And
yeah,
sustaining it for 20 years is not easy. I'm not there yet at this
right.
point, but I'm pretty passionate about sales. I really enjoy it, and just kind of the craft of it and all that stuff. So I can
Takes a
I can
special
definitely
kind of
respect.
person for sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So much respect to you, man. And
All
yeah,
right,
looking
bud.
forward to more conversations. Thanks again.
Yes, indeed. Have a good day.